how do you think Latinas see the world differently than either Latino men or, white people?
I mean, so you're sharing about some of those external or outside pressures and expectations that are put on women, right, in general, which we have to combat. And what I found that was different in some of the research and the experiences I had just putting together an anthology, and I had to talk to over 100 working Latina PR pros that were at, they
Yeah.
made a lot more than me, right, than I did financially, and were big companies that were just well, I don't know. And they were holding themselves back because they were afraid of criticism, right? Of being courageous, of not being seen as having an ego, of asking for something for themselves. Because again, there's those external expectations outside of our family and inside the workplace. And believe me, like I've got a son, I've got a husband. I am not in for a gender war of any kind. But there's a realness, right? Because there's a difference in lived experiences where you're like, I've never lived through that, but the internal expectations within the family you grew up in, especially if they're a little less educated, a little less acculturated, right? If they haven't built something of their own and know that lonely path, then they're pulling you down, like I said, in ways that they don't think. Oh, I'm just trying to keep you close to us. Right. But I need to travel for my job, at
Hmm.
least this year, right? So what I'm asking in more people to do on both sides of all the aisles that's possible as human beings is just consider, right? Consider and be a little compassionate, empathetic of, well, okay, what could that look like? You're mentioning like sexism, whatnot. I mean, I had my hand licked when I worked the front desk as a young girl at the gym. I had a client put his hand on my chest. I don't think that's happened to you, Ruben, right? And just a lot of different experiences that are just
Yep.
unfair. I had a miscarriage and I was at a leadership retreat and I had to leave. And I remember knowing that moment, okay, men and women are not the same.
Yep.
Like I
Yep.
bear the babies and like I have to make some deliberate decisions. I started
Yep.
my own PR business to take some stress off commuting and what this industry is.
Mhm.
And so I just want to give all the grace and heart to everyone and say, look, I really like the movement. Like Scott Galloway's really behind, and he's got a book called Notes on Men and really talking
Yeah.
about more compassionate and like positive masculinity. I think
Yep.
that's an important, part of society. And if you think about all of it, it ties to communication. It ties to
Yep.
how we communicate with each other, what we say, what we don't say, the verbals and nonverbals we express, and what we tolerate. And so I think for me, let's be clear, no one asked me to write any of my books. No one invited me and paid for my podcast. No one's asked me to start this column. I
Yep.
learned, like you said, of these untold stories, and I said, we can't wait for people to tell our story, tell our stories for us. They may not even get it right.
Yeah.
We need
Yep.
to do it ourselves if we care about it.